I simply hit 3 at A, and now I have 4 functions for every word that I had. Isn't that so cool? I think most Vim users can empathize with me when I say that when I tell people that I use Vim, I usually get scoffed at, which is fair enough because as a Vim user, I'm proud of the fact that I use Vim and I like to tell people that I use Vim. But that being said, Vim does not deserve the hate that it gets. It has completely changed my coding life. It has made me a more productive developer while also allowing me to enjoy coding more. My thoughts are translated into code so much more quicker than before. And I just enjoy working in a code editor now. It feels fun. It feels like a game. So this video is a short tutorial and it's for everyone out there that's on the fence about starting Vim and don't really understand it very well. This is a short introduction and it will just give you the basics and the foundation that you need to build your Vim experience. And at first, it's going to feel like you are a lot less productive. But if you stick with it, there is a chance that you can become way more productive than you ever were. But the main thing is, I think you will enjoy coding more. And that's what I want people to take away from this video. Do the things that make coding feel more fun, and you'll want to do this for longer. And then we'll all be happy. Okay, let's get into the video. Okay, so the easiest way to get started in Vim is open up your editor of choice. And in this case, I'm going to be using VS Code. So you go into the extensions marketplace in VS Code and you type in Vim. And then you go to the Vim extension and you install and enable this onto your machine. So now I'm going to open up a page of code. And the one thing you need to keep in mind when you enter Vim is that you can't just type code straight away. If I type, it's not working here. And the reason for that, there's 2 modes in Vim. You have your normal mode and then you have your insert mode. When you open up a Vim file, you're in normal mode. And if I want to enter insert mode, I'm just going to go down to this line, for example. If I press I now enter insert mode and I can start typing some characters. So if I want to go from insert mode to normal mode, I press escape. So insert mode is triggered with I, and back to normal mode is escape. So when we're in VS Code, we are going to avoid using the arrow keys to navigate. You can use the arrow keys to navigate, but there's a much easier and simpler way to do this, and that's using H, J, K, and L. And the reason why this is so great is because it's just way more comfortable than using arrow keys, and you do really get used to it after a while. So if we want to go down a line, we hit J. If you want to go up, you hit K. If you want to go right, you hit L. And if you want to go left, you hit H. And at first this is going to feel extremely weird, but after a while it becomes very comfortable. And you're going to want to use H, J, K, and L for everything and not just coding. So just moving around a few characters can be quite jarring. So there are other ways to navigate as well. So if I want to jump to the next word, I can hit W. Here's me hitting W. And that jumps to the beginning of the next word, W. Now, if I want to jump to the end of the next word, I hit E, and E jumps to the end, which is great. And if I want to go backwards, I can hit B to go backwards. So that's W to jump to the beginning of the next word, and E to jump to the end of the next word, and B to jump backwards. Okay, so if you want to jump to the beginning of the line, you can hit underscore, And if you want to jump to the end of the line, you can hit the $sign. And this, I find I'm using this quite a lot when I code. So this is really useful to get backwards and forwards between the beginning of the line and the end of the line. So when we code, we use brackets a lot, and we also use braces for functions. And this can get quite messy if we're using a lot of them. One thing I really like using is %. And % allows you to jump to the matching brace or matching bracket for the one that you're currently on. So I'm currently on a brace. If I hit %, it jumps me to the closing brace here. Now another example is if I go to this brace over here for this function, if I hit %, it jumps me to the end of the function. And if I hit % again, it jumps me to the beginning of the function. This is incredibly useful. So if you want to jump through our code, a good way of doing this is using braces. So braces jumps you to the next blank line. So for example, if I hit a closing brace, it jumps me to this blank line. If I hit an opening brace, it jumps me to the previous one. So this is really useful if I want to quickly jump through these blocks of code, and it's really helpful for not just jumping to the next line, but jumping across blocks of code. Another thing I find useful is being able to jump to the top of the file and then to the end of the file. So if you want to jump to the top of the file from where we're at, we hit G and then another G, so 2 Gs. 2 Gs gets us to the top, and if we hit capital G, that gets us to the bottom of the file. So the one command that absolutely changed my Vim experience is F. F is so cool because it allows you to jump to a specific character. So let's say I want to jump to the opening bracket in this line. I hit F and then opening bracket. Immediately I've jumped to this line, and then I can hit W to go to this word, and I can start inserting something, changing this word to whatever I want. And it's so easy because in a couple of characters, I've already jumped across the entire line to exactly where I want to go. Now, let's say I want to go to this closing brace. I can hit F, closing brace. I'm there. I can maybe even add something else here like that. And it's just so useful, and I just love it. It's just changed my experience in Vim. Now, another thing that we can do is, let's say I'm earlier on in the line and I want to not jump onto the closing brace, but I want to jump just before the closing brace. I can hit T and then closing brace, and I jump right before. And then if I hit insert mode, I can then add my comma and add another example here, just like that. So let's say I'm at the beginning of the line and I want to jump to the next C. I do FC. But let's say I don't want the C, I want the C after that. Instead of doing FC again, I can just hit semicolon to repeat the previous command. Now if I go to the beginning of the line again and I want to jump before that C, I do T, C, and then again semicolon to repeat if I want to go to the next one. So let's say I'm on this line and I want to jump backwards. I don't want to jump forwards. I can use capital F to jump me to a specific character I want that is before where I'm currently at. So I can do capital F and then equals, which will jump me back to the equals sign. And I can also use capital T. So let's say I'm at this bracket here and I want to jump after the equals sign. I can use capital T and then hit equals, and that jumps me after the equals sign. So while I'm navigating, let's say I've jumped to a different blank line and I'm down here, my cursor's at the bottom of the screen. What if I don't want that cursor to be there? I want to move the code up so it's visible in the middle. you can actually hit ZZ to jump the code to the middle of the screen, and now it's much more readable. And let's say I'm at the line over here, I can just simply hit ZZ and now it's at the middle. Great. So when we want to repeat actions a specific number of times, we can use numbers before our command in order to do that. The thing I find myself using the most is numbers before J and K to move to a specific line. Let's say I want to jump to the console log 12 lines above my current character. I can hit 12 and then K, and that jumps me to that line. And I can hit W to jump to the beginning of that. Now this is incredibly useful. I find myself using this all the time. So this is even more useful than jumping between blank lines of code. I can jump to a very specific line. So if I want to go down to the delete user function and I want to go to the first line in that function, I can hit 13J. That's so useful. So now I'm going to move on to copying and pasting. To copy a word, for example, the word I'm currently on, I hit YW, and what that means is yank this word. And let's say I want to paste it at the end of the line below. I can hit J, and then I can hit $ to go to the end. And then I hit P for paste. So to summarize, Y is to yank and P is to paste. Now let's say I don't want to copy a word, but I want to copy an entire line. We hit YY to copy an entire line. So YY. And then I can hit P for paste to paste that line underneath. Really simple. Now let's say I want to delete. I can hit DW, which means delete word. So I can get rid of const by hitting delete W, just like that. And now if I want to delete a line, it's the same concept as yanking. So I hit DD to delete the line. Now to make yanking even more powerful, you can use it in conjunction with I to yank things inside of other things. So let me give you an example of that. Now let's say I want to copy everything inside this delete user function. I can hit Y, I, open brace, and now I've copied everything inside this function. And if I jump above this function and hit P for paste, I've just pasted the entire content of that function. And this works for any function you want to use. Now let's say I want to yank the contents of the brackets on this line. I can hit F bracket to jump to the bracket. Then I can hit Y, I, open bracket to copy everything in the bracket. And if I go to the line above and hit paste, I've now copied everything that's inside that bracket. You can even use this with strings. So if I jump to this string here, I can do YI quote, and then I can paste it in the blank line. And I've just pasted the entire contents of that string. But you may be thinking it's not very useful to yank the contents of a string. Usually you're copying that string and moving it somewhere else. You're not moving just the contents of the string. So you can actually add A instead of I to Y. And what that means, it will yank around. So let's say in this case, I want to yank around the quotes. So that means the quotes are included in that. I can hit YA quote. That will yank the whole quote, including the quotes around it. And then I jump to this blank line here and I hit P, and that pastes my entire string, including the quote. Now this also works for other things like brackets and braces. So let's say I want to yank around these braces. I can hit YA open brace and then go up and paste, and I've just pasted the entire function including the braces. So we're going to talk about insert mode. So in insert mode, if I hit I, I'm currently on the character C, by the way, and if I hit I, that will insert before that character. So now I can start typing whatever I want, basically. Now I'm going to hit escape. And let's say I don't want to insert before this character, but I want to insert after this character. I can simply use A to insert afterwards. Now sometimes you'll find yourself in the middle of a line, and it can be quite annoying to first jump to the beginning of the line and then enter insert mode. But what you can do is you can type capital I, and that will insert in the beginning of that line that you're currently on. But let's say you're in the middle of the line and you don't want to go to the beginning and insert, but you want to go to the end of the line and insert. You can hit capital A and then type, and you're at the end. So what makes insert mode so useful is that there are many ways to enter insert mode depending on what you want to do. So let's say I want to change the current word, right? I want to change const to, for example, let, right? Instead of deleting the word, then entering insert mode, I can just immediately delete the word and have it enter insert mode using just 2 characters. So I'm going to type C. C means change, and then I can type W, which means word. So CW means change word, and now I'm immediately in insert mode, and I can type let. But let's say I'm in the middle of a word. I can't just do CW because that changes the word from where I currently am. But what I can do is if I am in normal mode, I can hit CIW, which means change in word or change in a word, and then I can change the name from within that word. So I can say type this and then I'm done. So the most useful example of using change or C is when you want to change something within a bracket or within a function or within a string. So what if I want to change the arguments of this function? I can hit CI open bracket, and that jumps me to the brackets, gets rid of the contents, and allows me to change the parameters of the function in insert mode, like that. Now, if I want to change the contents of the function, I can hit CI open brace, and that allows me to start changing the contents of the delete user function. Now, if I want to change the contents of the string, let's say the string 3 lines above, I can go up by 3k, and then I can hit CI quote, and I'm able to change the string, in this case changing the error message, for example. Like that. And just to be clear, you can also do the same thing with arrays. For example, if I'm here on this line, I can hit CI square bracket, and I'm changing this array on this line. So sometimes when we're coding, we decide we want to add something into the line below or add something into the line above. So what you can do is enter insert mode on a new line below where you're currently at, and enter insert mode in a line above where you're currently at. So if I hit O, that enters me into insert mode below the line I'm currently on. And capital O puts me in insert mode above the line I'm currently on. So Vim has another mode, which is the visual mode. Now let's say I want to copy this line, another way I could do that is in visual mode. So I can hit V, and then I can jump to the end of the line, and I can hit Y to yank. And if I go into a line below, I can hit P to paste what I copied. So you can think of visual mode as highlighting blocks of code in order to perform some task. So for example, you can find yourself in the middle of a word, in this case, the one I'm currently in the middle of right now. And if I hit VIW, that highlights the whole word that I'm currently in. And for example, I can hit Y to copy it, and maybe I'll go above and paste it using P. So I like using V for different reasons. So for example, I can hit capital V, and what capital V will do is enter me into visual line mode. And visual line mode means if I go down by J, I am highlighting whole lines rather than just from my current character to where I started the visual mode. Let's say I have these 3 lines highlighted and I'm not happy with the way they're positioned. I want to move them over by 1 tab. The way I can do this is by using an angle bracket. So a closing angle bracket will get me 1 tab over, and an opening angle bracket will get me 1 tab back. But I can also use numbers with this as well. So let's say I enter visual line mode, I highlight this section, and now I want to put this 2 tabs to the right. I can hit 2 closing angle bracket to move it 2 tabs over to the right. I can also move it back by 2. So if I highlight this by doing visual line mode, go down 2 lines, and then hit 2 opening angle bracket, that moves me 2 tabs over to the left. Now let's say I want to do multi-line editing. I can enter what's called visual block mode. So if I hit Control V, that puts me in visual block mode. I can go down by 2 lines by hitting 2J, and now I want to insert comments. I want to comment out these 3 lines, for example. I hit Shift I to enter insert mode, and then I hit 2 slashes to introduce comments, and then I hit space to just make it look a little bit prettier, and then I hit escape, and that applies my changes just like that. So the most powerful feature in Vim is probably macros. Now I'm going to show you the power of macros in this one example. Now let's say I have these words, Vim is the best, and I want to create a function, for example, out of each of these words. I can do this using macros. So if I hit Q to start recording, and then I hit A, which means I want to save my macro in the A register. So I hit A now. It enters the recording phase. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter insert mode. I'm going to say const vim, go to the end of the line in insert mode, equals here. Now I'll create a function for Vim. I'm going to escape. I'm going to go 2 lines down to the next word, and then I'm going to exit this macro by hitting Q. Now let's say I want to apply this macro to the remaining 3 words. I simply hit 3 at A, and now I have 4 functions for every word that I had. Isn't that so cool? So what if I didn't want to convert these into functions, but I wanted to convert them into items in a list? What I can do is create my list. Const L is equal to this. I'll just copy these in, and then I will move these over by 1. I'll start at the beginning of Vim, And then what I'll do is I'll do QA again to record in the register A. I enter insert mode. I put a quote, then I jump to the end of the word, and then I put another quote and then comma. Now I go to the beginning of this line, and then if I stop recording and I hit 3 at A again, these all become items in my list. This is an extremely powerful feature in Vim, and I use this all the time. You often find yourself doing repetitive tasks, but if you use macros, you can turn something that is a task that takes minutes into mere seconds. Okay, I don't know what to do for my outros. All I'm going to say is if the macros didn't convince you to use Vim, then I don't know what will. Okay, bye.